Welcome to the PFF forecast. It is Thursday morning, December 8th. We usually record on a Wednesday evening. Had to adjust. So it's a little morning brew, a little morning coffee with the beloved Seth Galina, who will kick us off. We have Judah Fortgang to talk in-game live strategy, and Tej Seth in spirit for the lock of the week. It will be a delightful podcast. Let's rock. All right, it's 5:30 a.m. Here in California, but I've got to say, Seth, it's not 5:30 a.m. for you, but somehow you've managed to make it look like it's 5:30 a.m. for you.
This is I gotta set my alarm for 8:29 a.m. and roll out, and here I am. So I think I'm doing a hell of a job for that.
Are you saying that you're not a morning person?
I'm not a morning person. I've become more. I think we all become more morning people as we age, but I'm still not there yet.
You are young at heart, I guess. What about you, Brad? Morning guy?
Yeah, it's actually 6:30 at me. I'm in Colorado visiting my dad. So we're burning the midnight oil for the podcast this morning. Yeah.
That's one way to do it. I mean, you could just not sleep.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk Thursday night and Sunday night football from a scheme perspective with Seth, because Seth preps the best to do the exact same on national television, both Chris and Kirk. And so he's got way more insight into what the hell is going to go on in these two games than we do. And we'll start with the Raiders and the Rams. As I heard this morning, and Brad, maybe you can clue us in here. Apparently, Baker Mayfield, who's now a Los Angeles Ram, for any members of the printing press who have not seen this yet, may play. Obviously, John Wolford was the presumed starting quarterback. He has a 40 PFF grade. The Rams at home are a 6.5-point underdog. Brad, what do you expect out of this?
Yeah, so Wolford has a tweaked neck and he's been questionable for this game. I think it's probably more gamesmanship though, and then the Rams just trying to get the Raiders to prepare to see some Baker Mayfield. But look, maybe he comes in for a couple snaps and throws a very simple, very basic concept. But I doubt he's gonna start this football game.
Seth, what does preparing for Baker Mayfield entail? Is that having your defense just be ready to catch the football?
Yeah, it's hands practice in the drill work. But I there's nothing different. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't know if we want to talk about Baker Mayfield here.
No,
we could do it for an hour, I'm sure.
No,
but it's over. It's funny how every time he does this, it's like here we go. It's happening. Career reset. We're at reset number 3 right now, and I think it's probably over.
The only thing I'll say is Sean McVay's offense. Now, this is not the normal Sean McVay offense because you don't have Cooper Kupp, you don't have a great offensive line, but it did make the most out of Jared Goff. And it's not as if Baker Mayfield were in some sort of amazing situation in Cleveland with Fred Kitchens, and that obviously Stefanski comes in. That still didn't work out. But, the supporting cast. All I'm saying is I don't know. There's at least it's better than Carolina. Let's pivot from that though and talk something that actually is going to matter in this game, Seth. So as you look at this, obviously a big home underdog. You'd expect the Raiders probably to have more fans here than the Rams by a large number. So what on the field, Seth, is the kind of biggest scheme matchup that you're watching?
I think. Well, I'll say this first about the Raiders. I have a feeling they're going to make the playoffs. It's a feeling. I just think the way that their lines are playing on both offensively and defensively recently, and then obviously you have such good skill talent on offense. Not sure about Waller and Renfro. They'll be back eventually, but you still have Adams, obviously. Carr's playing well. Jacobs playing amazing. So I feel good about them, but we'll see. The matchup that I think is overwhelming in the Raiders' favor is their edge rushers versus the tackles of the Los Angeles Rams. Rob Havenstein is their best tackle, but he's not even like a good player. He's an average player. The other side, I think it's going to be Ty Neshke, who's getting the start there at left tackle. He's backing up. He's coming in for Joe Noteboom. I don't honestly think there's that big of a difference between Neshke and Noteboom, but regardless, he is the backup. Max Crosby, one of the best players in the league. Chandler Jones, not having a great year, except the last couple of weeks. So if we're getting a real Chandler Jones, this is a huge matchup advantage in the favor of the Raiders. I mean, still, even with like the Jones that had played the first, let's say 8 weeks, 10 weeks of the season, still a big matchup in the Raiders' favor. But if Chandler Jones is playing like he has 3 sacks last week, maybe this is even worse of a matchup for the Rams than it could have been.
Max Crosby, their third highest graded edge defender in the NFL, 90.2 PFF grade. So, both those players kind of the stranglehold or the stronghold, I should say, of the defense. And I guess I look at that and I go, okay, that makes sense. It makes sense that the Rams are a big underdog. And so I wonder what the right way to take advantage of that is. I'm thinking maybe it's a sack prop. Because those are now available. I don't know if they're out at this moment. I'll check here in a second. But it is interesting because this offensive line, I think maybe we undersold the importance of Andrew Whitworth retiring. I think you're right in saying Neshke probably not a big downgrade from Noteboom. Both have been not particularly great.
I think also Austin Corbett leaving for the Panthers, that has not helped either. Yeah, it's been horrifying. And then, like you said, Cooper Kupp not there. I mean, Allen Robinson's been bad, but he's not even there anymore to be bad on the field. So like, it's bad. I thought Wolford was like okay last week. Now I will say that looking up some of the numbers is funny because you talk about protecting your backup quarterback and then also protecting your offensive line. If you take away all the runs, all the play action, screens, and RPOs, you're left with 13 plays, 13 straight dropbacks for Wolford last week. And then 4 of those were on the last drive where they got the ball with 30 seconds left. So that's just a situational thing. 9 out of like 50 something, 60 plays or something like that. So really trying to protect them. And if you can't, now the Raiders aren't great up the middle in terms of stopping the run. So maybe the Rams can figure out something where they get the ball rolling down the field a bit, but even that's a little dicey. So might be rough.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, this is probably the most egregious example we've seen all season, but if there's anything you think does come positively from the trickeration, oh, this guy might play and we know he's not going to, what is one stress it puts on the opponent, even though we kind of seem silly from the outside?
Yeah, I think, I as you guys know, I watch a lot of hockey, and what they talk to goalies a lot, and maybe they do this in soccer too, I'm not sure. But they definitely do in hockey, where they talk to goalies and they say like, they talk to players about facing certain goalies, the shooters, and they're like, well, what do you do versus this goalie? What do you do with that goalie? And they're like, well, we fucking shoot the puck in spots where the goalie's not there. Like, that's what we do. And like, I feel like there's a similarity here where it's like, what do you do for difference between like Wolford and Baker Mayfield? It's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like Wolford could give you some more on the ground. He can maybe get you some quarterback design runs. He's a little bit of an athlete, but you play defense, man. Like you play the call. I think it's more like, and was going to be my pet peeve of the week, so I'll just say it anyways. On the other side of the ball, with Devontae Adams, like that is different. That is completely different how you play a team with Devontae Adams and how you play a team without Devontae Adams. And my pet peeve was going to be teams that don't double team Devontae Adams. I think he's playing at the level that is one of the few guys that we've seen over the past 20 years who deserves a double team every play. And I say I don't think the Rams are gonna do that. I think they're gonna play a lot. They already do play a lot of cover 3, so that would scare me a little bit. If I was a Rams fan going into this game, if you're not going to double Devontae Adams, of course the issue is when you double him, that Raiders, like I said, that Raiders offensive line is playing just good enough right now that Jacobs is having some opportunities, Carr is having some opportunities to move around the pocket a little bit more. But I just don't think you could allow Davante Adams single coverage, even against Jalen Ramsey this week.
Do you think this was going to be, so as we move on to the bets, this was going to be the one that I had circled and was curious kind of how you saw, obviously with Jalen Ramsey over there, but I think, earlier this year when we had the Bills and the Rams, right? Stephon Diggs over receptions. We bet that, they're going to move him around was kind of the hypothesis. And actually the Rams are playing a lot of zone this year, to your point. So over 6.5 receptions for Davante Adams, even though it's minus 150, is probably my favorite bet right now. That Seth, just anything that I should be wary of there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's like you're afraid if they just come in and they double him in different ways. What you're seeing a lot is you are seeing straight double teams, right? Like, hey, we have two guys on Davante Adams. But as we kind of know, like that's not like really how defense works, especially in the NFL and in college too. And honestly, high school is probably the only space where you just get a full game of double teams on one player. What you see is a lot of like cover two to one side, and it'll always be to Davante Adams' side when you're playing against the Raiders. Like teams who don't run certain coverages, all of a sudden you're seeing cover two to Davante Adams' side because they want two bodies over there. That's the double team that you're going to get. And honestly, what's happening is it's opening up the field for the tight end over the middle. And Carr is not afraid to take those shots down the middle of the field when the two safeties split because they're in cover two. He hasn't hit them as well as he should have. He's using Foster Moreau instead of Darren Waller, who hasn't been available. So that is also something to look for. But I think, the issue is we've seen him be doubled and we've seen him still catch a lot of balls because he's that good. So, the over is still looking pretty enticing even if they do double him. What
about you? What's your favorite angle on this game?
I honestly just like the Raiders minus 6.5. I think it might have just moved to 6.5 this morning when I looked. I still like it. I think they're just a much better team, much and in all facets of the game right now. So I think that's the way to go. Honestly, the one that if you can get it, and I looked this morning and I can get it on my app, but Rams under 6.5 wins, if you can get that, that's the way to go. I saw that on PFF Greenline and I've been trying to get it ever since. So those are my two for this game.
Brad, what about you?
Yeah, so the Raiders and Rams are both bottom 5 in EPA per rush allowed. I was thinking about maybe taking a Cam Akers under, but he did have 17 carries last week and kind of get fed. The one I like this week is Tyler Higbee under 3.5 receptions. He's gone over this once in the last 7 weeks since week 6. I think Stafford loved him. I think since the loss of Stafford, the quarterbacks just haven't really targeted Tyler Higbee in the passing game. So that's the play for tonight.
I was going to say that I looked at the props on PFF.com on the best bets tool, which everyone, by the way, can go get with PFF Plus subscription and enjoy. But you look at the receiving options for the Rams, and they all first thought they just kind of all look like the same person. And then you've got like Tutu Atwell over there, and I forgot that Tutu Atwell was still getting playing time in the league. It's absolutely astounding. The Rams are in a huge pit of misery. Let's move on to Sunday night. So this was a flex. It was originally going to be Kansas City, Denver. Mercifully, we don't have to watch the Russell Wilson experience anymore. So we get Miami and the Chargers. This one in Los Angeles, and so 2 games in LA. The Dolphins coming off of a game where they not only did not cover, but got kind of blown out by Brock Purdy and the 49ers. So they've stayed on the West Coast, a little bit of team bonding, which I'm sure they won't talk about in this game at all, against the Chargers, who are 6-6, 7-5 against the spread. Both teams, the Dolphins 6-6 against the spread, 8-4 overall. And the Dolphins are a 3.5-point favorite, total 51.5. So there's a lot more to talk about in this game, a lot more players that people actually know. Seth, where are you looking most closely? What's the matchup that most interests you?
I think the issue the Chargers have had the whole year, honestly, the past 2 years, is just getting off of man coverage with their receivers. And so very interesting. Last week they played the Raiders. The Raiders are not generally a man coverage team. And who played the most man coverage in the league last week? Las Vegas Raiders, because they just know that, and they don't have great corners or anything, but like they just know that, hey, we can match up with these Chargers wide receiving core, even with Keenan Allen back. And now you're playing a Dolphins team who lives in man coverage. Like this is, I wouldn't say they played it as much as they have last year, but it is still their base coverage. And so now you have teams who play man coverage like as their base, so that they have answers for stuff, right? So it's not just like, hey, we're just going to run this for a week and you know we might have to get out of it. No, they have answers in man coverage to deal with what the Chargers are going to do. You know, the Chargers are a short passing team. They're going to run their quick game concepts. Don't love them versus man. You can go watch like a ton of clips of them running, you know, slants and flats and curls and stuff versus man coverage, and no one's getting separation. Keenan Allen, coming back from injury, not the same player. He's also getting up there in age. Maybe it's age, maybe it's just the injury. I don't know, but it's not great right now. So it just puts a lot of stress on Justin Herbert to do everything. And they're just not good enough right now. The offensive line not good enough. So I think the Dolphins, and I don't think Dolphins have been amazing on defense this year, but Dolphins DBs in man coverage versus Chargers receivers is a big mismatch.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that Dolphins defense. They are 18th in any paper play allowed, so not great. You know, they went and made the trade for Bradley Chubb, trying to get home with 4 rushers. Still kind of hasn't been the case. What have you seen from them on defense? You know, is it injury with no Byron Jones in the fold and those things? Can they figure it out? Can they fix it? Are they good enough, come playoff time? Or kind of what are your thoughts on that unit?
Yeah, I think they're probably better off going back to what they were doing before and just kind of living in that variance world of let's blitz the shit out of people. And what they're doing now is like they're still showing it a little bit and then coming out of it more than the all-out blitzes. So they're showing it on the line of scrimmage. Hey, we're coming. And then, hey, we're not coming. And it's also funny, you know, speaking of that Chargers Raiders game from last week, is the Raiders did that a lot to the Chargers and the Chargers couldn't handle it. So I just wonder if like, all right, well, if this, like, we feel better about our players in these type of schemes if we're the Dolphins than we do the Raiders, and we just saw the Raiders have some success, maybe we get into that stuff too. So I think the Dolphins probably better off, just like I said, just going back into that stuff. They know it. They've been okay in it over the years. So that to me, it probably gives you a better chance of winning if you're an average defense in the playoffs, like in a 1-game scenario, especially with the offense being as good as it is. So yeah, I think they're like probably gonna be fine. And by fine, I mean like, you know, 18th in defense.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope that NBC is prepared to talk about Tua and Herbert and the raging Twitter battle between football accounts about these two guys. I saw someone on Twitter suggest that Emmanuel Acho be a guest for like for a segment of the show. So we could hear him talk about these guys. For anyone that doesn't live their lives online and is like, what the hell is going on? There are some members of the Tuanon that just can't get off of their priors and argue vociferously for Tua being the better quarterback than Justin Herbert. Now, if there's any person that's going to have a take on this subject that is well thought out, it's going to be the guy that once said, quote, Herbert just can't play. I think that's exactly it, Seth. Now, the great thing about Seth is that he is a student of the game, and he is able to adjust his hypotheses and the way he thinks about players as he gains more information. So we have more information about these guys. It's not perfect, right? Tua is playing with the number 1 graded wide receiver in the NFL in Tyreek Hill, another top 10 wide receiver in Jalen Waddle. They made the biggest offensive line acquisition of the season in Teron Armstead. They probably made the biggest jump in terms of an offensive scheme going from what they were using before to what Mike McDaniels has brought. And Justin Herbert on the other side of things may have seen the biggest kind of downgrade from what we thought preseason with a bunch of injuries across the entire team, offensive line and wide receivers. So as you evaluate these guys, like how do you do that? How would you compare them, and where might you rank them in the pantheon of quarterbacks that we have right now?
Yeah, I'm still pretty bullish on. It's funny. I started doing a betting podcast with you guys, and now I say bullish all the time. Like,
Welcome.
God damn, man. All right. I still like Justin Herbert a lot. It's really hard to look at Tua and be like, oh, this is the Hall of Famer. This is Drew Brees. Like, this is what it is. Because I think we've just seen it too many times, especially in the Shanahan offense. We've seen it too many times. Guys just being like, hey, guys without a lot of tools, and Tua does not have a lot of tools. He's obviously a lot more accurate than he was last year, but not a lot of tools for arm strength and mobility and stuff like that. Can you do this year over year? Now, if I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm excited because they're doing it this year, and we can win the Super Bowl this year. Like, they're good enough to win the Super Bowl on offense. McDaniel has done an excellent job of creating an offense where everybody's open all the time, which really helps. And I think a level of trust between him and Tua, which is unbelievable to watch. And again, it's like the Shanahan stuff, but I think there's, everyone talks about anticipation and timing, and Tua's doing that at a high level. I really think it's mostly a trust in what the offensive staff led by McDaniel has told him about the players on defense, where it's like, hey, if you get this, don't worry about it. This next thing is going to happen because we've seen it before. We know what we're going to get. And that's how they attack linebackers. That's how they attack safeties and corners and stuff like that. So that to me has been the biggest thing. I just don't know whether it continues like Baker, right? We saw it in 2020 under Stefanski running a similar-ish offense with the outside zone, the play action, the boots and all that stuff. And it just hasn't ever been the same for Baker. So it's like you can get these guys to do it from 1 year. I also have maybe this should have been my pet peeve, but the Drew Brees comparisons for Tua are so funny to me because he's 25, 26, whatever he is. Drew Brees at that age could throw the ball down the field. Like, Drew Brees had an arm at that time in his life. We remember the Drew Brees in the last years that the Saints were making the playoffs, 17, 18, 19, 20, and say, wow, look at this guy. He doesn't have an arm anymore, but gets the job done. Well, he was like 35 to 39. You know what I mean? So he just knew the game so well, and Tua's not there yet. So he's being propped up a lot by Mike McDaniel. So I'm just not sold going forward. This year, 100% sold. One of my favorite offenses to watch. They run the same play all the time. It works every time. Good for them. And then Herbert on the other side is just like, give this guy some players, man. Give this guy a coordinator. Give this guy some receivers. Give this guy an offensive line. Obviously, they thought they were going to be better with Rashawn Slater coming into his second year. He's out for the whole season, most of the season. They haven't been very good. Honestly, all the free agent acquisitions they've made have been bad, offense and defense. So I don't know, man. You put Herbert in the Dolphins offense with McDaniel, and they're setting the league on fire, kind of just like Tua is. But you can feel it better on a year-to-year basis than with Tua. That's kind of where I am. I know that Herbert hasn't played exceptionally well, but like I said, given the issues they have getting open, I don't know what you expect him to do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And to his credit, on plays where the receiver he's targeting is open, by our classification, by our charting, has the highest PFF grade in the NFL. And Patrick Mahomes is right behind him. And it's not actually as if he's just throwing a ton of dink and dunk stuff on those throws. Average depth of target is 8.5 for Tua. For Mahomes, it's 6.3. For Josh Allen, it's 7.7. So he is making the throws that are there. And like, I don't know, to me, and I don't know, Brad, how you feel about this, but I think comparing the two of them is like not necessarily the fun part, right? It's more looking at each of them kind of individually and thinking about what they need and how you might update your analysis of them.
Yeah, they win in such different ways. I do agree with you. And I think like we can appreciate a guy that doesn't have tools, but is ahead of schedule and makes anticipatory throws and does other things. I think we always kind of fall in love with guys that have both of those things.
Mhm.
But those are rare specimens in football.
All right, it's time to make some bets here on this game. We'll start with you, Brad, this time. What are you thinking?
Yep. So not up yet, but a play I love, especially after Seth talked about. So I figure Miami is going to sit in a lot of man coverage. And as you mentioned, the receivers cannot get separation against man coverage as a unit. They're bottom five and are open, or have a step against their DB. But also for Justin Herbert, speaking of our buddy Manny Acho, who said he's a turnover machine, he has the lowest turnover worthy play rate this season. He had the lowest turnover worthy play rate last season as well. So what I think is going to happen is a million checkdowns to Austin Eckler because the receivers will be covered. He's not going to take a risk, and he's not going to, get a sack. He also has a very, very low sack rate on pressures. So the over on Austin Eckler receptions, I think he could have like 8 or 9 checkdown catches in this game.
Especially because I have Austin Eckler on the only fantasy team that has a prayer. So I could certainly use that. Seth, what about you?
I have 4 tight ends on my fantasy team right now. That's where I am with this season, which I'm ready for. I'm ready to end it right now. I think I kind of it's really going to depend what the number is when it comes out. But I think if it's like 2.5, maybe even 3.5 Josh Palmer receptions, you can think about the over there because he's the guy. He's a big body. They like him on like easy hitch routes versus man coverage, so you might get targeted quite a bit against man coverage. I think overall though, Chargers money line.
Mhm.
Like, who's the better quarterback? And I understand who's been the better system, who's been playing better offense, but who's the better quarterback is Justin Herbert. So, either Chargers money line, Chargers, I guess plus 3.5 would be the numbers. So, looking at those two.
Yeah, I like the hook there with Chargers 3.5, despite all the things that we just said. But I'm really looking forward to when props get posted. A little Tyreek Hill, Waddle. Is he trending towards playing?
I think
He's
he'll
banged
play,
up.
but yeah, he's not going to be 100%. So it's a good note.
Not going to be 100%. And the Chargers defensive backs, I mean, this team may have taken the biggest dump in terms of what we thought they were going to look like from a talent perspective and what they have actually been. But they have no prayer at covering Tyreek Hill. You can look at it on PFF.com and see the defensive back grades. They're not solid. So I would expect Tyreek Hill to get fed in this game, and I'm not sure there's much the Chargers can really do about it. It's not as if any team has come into the games against the Dolphins and been like, hey, we should just ignore Tyreek Hill. Like, we don't think he's a big deal. Like, he's been killing everybody. So this is a far cry from the San Francisco 49ers defense. That is for sure. All right. You mentioned your pet peeve, Seth. So I guess we have nothing else. My pet peeve is people telling me that they woke up at 8:29 in the morning as if that was really early, just so you know.
I will say that I was trying to be a little funny there.
Okay.
I wake up way before my alarm. And that's what but it's a problem though. Like, I don't like that I'm like I set my alarm for whatever I set my alarm and I'm up an hour before, half an hour before, because it makes me feel old. And then I'm just like, well, then I'm groggy and whatever. I don't have to get into it.
That's a
I'm
humble
bearish.
brag.
Yeah, I'm bearish on your energy over there, Seth. Very bearish. I think.
That's such a humble brag. I wake up
Yeah,
an
it
hour.
was.
That's just like someone setting their alarm for some ridiculous times. Like, yeah, I always beat my alarm. That's going to be something you should make, like those TikToks where it's like these people are like, this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is just how I live my life. Right. And it's like, what are the things that rich people do? And one of them should just be, I always beat my alarm up.
My internal clock is better than my iPhone clock. Like,
Seth, you and your internal clock are better than the average analyst. We thank you. Appreciate you. Always go check out Seth at PFF_Seth on Twitter. Writes great content whenever he does, regardless of the medium, whether it's online, on social, or on the podcast airwaves. Seth, we appreciate you.
See you guys.
A reminder that 2023, it could be a bit of a challenge from an economic perspective. And so you'll want to get your money right. And one way to do that is with Western and Southern Financial Group. Whether you're trying to start a family, buy a house, anything that you're trying to do from a money perspective, you want to have a game plan and a playbook to make that work for you. And just going and searching social media, probably not the best way to do that. Go to westernsouthern.com/PFF and get started with a game plan tailored to whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish, and do so today. Also, Manscaped. I talk about Manscaped when people ask me like, hey, give me a product that I can actually use. Manscaped is one that I still use. I was just traveling, and it's great because the battery doesn't run out. So you can travel with it without bringing a battery case. Manscaped.com, promo code forecast20 gets you 20% off plus free shipping. The Manscaped Platinum Package 4.0, which is an amazing name. I use the Manscaped product and have for a while, and I can tell you the Lawnmower 4.0 is a really good product. It won't cut you up. Make sure you're feeling good for Christmas when you're wearing like 45 layers, trying to deal with family. At least you'll be feeling good where it matters. So go to manscaped.com, use promo code forecast, 20% off plus free shipping. It's a good gift as well. I don't know what it says about the person that you get the gift for, but if you're getting it for another dude, I don't think they care. All right. Judah Fortgang is joining us now. Judah, you had a same game parlay again this past week. So tell people where they can find your same game parlay so that people can go check them out.
Well, you can go find it on pff.com or the app, or if you're really just desperate, go on Throw the Damn Ball. I generally post a reminder link Sunday morning. It'll all be there.
Good. I will definitely be checking it out. I gotta admit, like, those things are daunting when you go into a sports book and you're trying to figure out like, oh, I'm going to play same game parlay, but like, which one do I choose? So it's nice to have someone actually think it through, just like it is thinking through both in-game strategy if you're betting live, and what alt lines might be available. So as usual, we chat with Judah about these things. He writes up his hypotheses on pff.com and the PFF app. You can go check those out. Let's start with an alt line play that you like this week, Judah.
Yeah, we're gonna go. This is an alt line combined with a prop. Actually, we're gonna go with Mike White over 250 passing yards and the Jets plus 7.5. You can get that at plus 330. It's available on DraftKings. We'll see what the other sports books have to offer when they release their props. But basically, I guess it ties into kind of a broader way of approaching the betting season, if you will, which is like the first couple of weeks are almost like a matter of testing your offseason hypotheses, kind of against what's happening. The middle weeks, we start to kind of just learn who's actually good. By this point in the season, we kind of have a good sense of like which teams are pretty good, and like a breakdown of like who's got a good pass defense, who's got a good run defense, who's got a good, rushing offense, etc. So I think here you almost have to, number one, take into account matchups more, and number two, I think balance like recent play versus like 13 weeks, right? It's a matter of like, to understand where a team's going, you kind of have to understand like the full picture, which is like 13 weeks at this point, but also kind of what's been happening in the past 6 or 7 weeks, because that also has some signal. And generally, I think you want to ask yourself, is it just like randomness that's happening, or is there good reason if there's a change in a team? And I think the Bills are a perfect example of that, which is like they started the season totally dominant, but like the defense has kind of faltered out. And you can ask yourself, is it just noise? Is it like defense is pretty variant and volatile? Or like the team's actually been really hurt. Like they've lost their starting safety. They just lost Von Miller. The talent is not what it was earlier in the season. This has been a Bills defense on their pass defense is bottom 5 in EPA the last like 6 or 7 weeks. The drive quality, has the same picture. But the Bills are still facing a bunch of passing attempts because their offense is still good. And if we're betting a passing prop, right, volume is really what matters. Mike White's going to have plenty of that. The Jets are passing over expected. And just in general, right, if the Jets are to cover, this 7.5, which really I think this line's probably closer to 6.5. I think it's really mispriced. It's probably going to be because Mike White is playing at least at expectation. And I think you can kind of combine those game angles, get a plus 330 out of it. It's something that I think is very attractive.
Mike White believer. Mike White or Brock Purdy? Choose one. No, I as someone that is forced, this is now my second time on the podcast talking about my fantasy team. You're welcome. I'm in a 2-quarterback league where I have to start Mike White. So I'm like the biggest Mike White fan is out there. That's where my season has gone. Let's go into the in-game strategy for this week. The Chiefs are playing the Broncos, so the chances of being able to roll with the Chiefs are down early. Let's bet them live. Does not seem like a strategy that we can employ. So please guide us in a better direction.
Unfortunately not. All right, we'll start with Vikings and Lions. Okay, one thing we always like to talk about, and if you're new to the forecast, volatility is a live better's best friend, right? Because odds are constantly changing, and you can generally, especially if you're attuned to it, grab both sides, get a middle, which is something that we talked about in the Bengals Chiefs last week. I executed that trade. I got both sides at plus money, and I think we're going to have a similar type game here. Number one, two at least fine offenses, or the Vikings are boosted when they're playing the Lions 32nd ranked defense. And the Lions have been really successful on offense. They've got the 6th best EPA. They're scoring touchdowns at like the 3rd best clip of any team. There's a reason that the game total is 52.5 right now. These are two teams who can trade scores quickly, and that's a lot better's best friend. But to add kind of some more fuel to that, this is a long-standing trend now of the Vikings totally incapable of holding a lead. Basically every year that Kirk Cousins has been the quarterback there. So it's 5 years running. The team has really struggled to establish any sort of success rate or EPA when leading. I posted this chart, I think, like 7 or 8 times this season of just this team can't hold a lead. And the Lions a little less so, but they too have been much worse, kind of sustaining a lead. The exception was last week. But these are teams that have struggled, and you can kind of grab the underdog generally at plus money.
So just to make sure that people, members of the printing press understand. So would you start with, would you, right now the Vikings are, I want to say like plus 120 or plus 116 on the money line. So would you bet that to start? And then you would be looking to grab the Lions should they go down and they go to plus money? Explain that just a little bit.
Yeah, that is generally how I approach it. I'm really just looking to kind of say which team's gonna get out to a lead first, and I just want to grab it. Like once that line crosses 7, basically, I think there's going to be enough volatility. I'm hoping that it's the Lions, just because the line already started at 2.5 and it will quickly move. But it's not if it's more of like a 4.5, 5.5, like the Chiefs Chargers, which you talked about, I like to start with the money line just because you can get much juicier odds. But here I'm really just looking like once that line crosses 7, I'm just going to grab the underdog.
Okay. So kind of going into the game, hopefully Lions score first. You take the Vikings. Maybe the Vikings come back. They grab a lead. The Vikings now are a favorite. You grab the Lions on the other side at plus money. And now you have this really big middle where you just kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy the cash.
Exactly.
That's advanced, members of the printing press. Brad, any that you wanted to run by Judah here that you were thinking about?
Yeah, so I was wondering what you think or how well you think pace of play is priced in to market. So you touched on this game already, but I think the Bills defense has not been as good of late. Yes, it's Mike White, but he actually has been at least moving the ball, getting it to playmakers in space. So both the Bills and Jets are top 5 in pace of play. And by that, I mean seconds between snaps on offense. And that hasn't changed with White. It's actually been faster the last couple of weeks. So I thought the over 44 there, or maybe getting a live over if it's a slow start, but knowing that both teams in neutral situations still move the ball or snap the ball very consistently, but wondering if you had any thoughts on, is that already entirely priced in?
I don't think it's entirely priced in. It's also, especially if we're talking live betting, there's no way you're pricing in the actual pace of no huddle. And that's a great angle to look for, which is like teams do kind of slow down or speed up tempo on a game-to-game basis. It's definitely matchup specific too. I think it's like probably minorly priced in before the game, and I think this is another good data point for my Mike White play. Just like more snaps, more opportunity for passing yards, but it's definitely not being priced in live. I think maybe a little bit before the game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about a lot of these sort of situations where how does a dynamic model, price some of these things in? Do you see a lot of variance between books when you're betting live, Judah? I've got to imagine some books are using, different either third parties or, actually doing it in-house. How do you kind of figure out where you're going to bet live?
Yeah. I mean, I have all my screens open, so I'm monitoring for the answer is yes. And like if I had, which I in theory should and could, $8-9 the prices are going to be very, very different across the board. I know there are certain books, for instance, that like really didn't buy into Geno Smith earlier this season. And they were like really slow on like Seahawks passing props, let's say. And like there was like an arbitrage available, which I didn't actually execute because that's not I'm not trying to get down enormous bets, but like that existed, and there was an arbitrage across books. So yes, like it's not, people are using different servers, different parties, and like pricing, especially for player props, is extremely dynamic and very difficult to capture. And books are going to have massive discrepancies.
Yeah, it's something that, I mean, I think for the casual bettor, it's like, look, it's not why I'm here, but if you're like starting to get into it a little bit more, those opportunities are out there, and you even just to watch it for a game or a week and kind of see the differences, it's kind of startling. Judah has a lot more analysis that you can go find, but I encourage everyone to go actually read the content. Follow him on Twitter at Throw the Damn Ball. He'll obviously share his content there. You can find it on the PFF app and pff.com. Make sure you check out his same game parlays in addition to his alt line angles and in-game strategy. And then you can check him out. You stream this live on Sundays, so you can go watch if you're so inclined and see how the magic happens. Judah, we appreciate you hanging out with us early on a Thursday morning. Have a great one, brother.
You too.
Right. We are on, Brad, to the lock of the week. Last week, obviously we had, normally we have Tej Seth here. He is traveling this morning. He's big timing this, is what he's doing.
He is. He really is.
I just felt like last week, the process was really sound. And we just got, I mean, the fact that CeeDee Lamb, the CeeDee Lamb over didn't hit in that game, in large part because like all of a sudden it just became a defensive, skull, whatever you want to call it. The Cowboys destroyed the Colts. We should have gone 3-1. We ended up going 2-2. Could be worse, but should have been better in my opinion. So we're gonna have to channel a little bit of Tej and come back from this one, I think.
We have to channel the chain. Chain Tej has a better record than non-chain Tej. So I think we have to, that's where our focus needs to be.
That's right. That's a good point. Tej came on here wearing a necklace. Now, ironically, that was right. It was the day before Thanksgiving. So he was, he was about to go on Blackout Wednesday, and the chain obviously provided him what he needed. So I don't have one. Although on Instagram, they try really hard to get me to buy those Jackson chains. I don't know if they've got you, Brad.
No, I'm chainless. I'm actually Instagram-less. So no, I've avoided that.
Good for you, because they are targeting me hard. I will not succumb. All right. So it's just us two. As usual, we go through our favorite bets of the week, and we pick a lock or locks of the week. Irony heavily on that term, but here we go. Let's start. Why don't you give me your favorite one?
Yeah. So I'm going to start out with a teaser here. The Ravens are now +2.5 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then I'm going to do it with the Kansas City Chiefs if they're still laying 8.5 against the Denver Broncos. It's now 9.5. So I guess that one does not work anymore. So I will pivot. On that one. So we're going to do, one second, bad radio. All right. Baltimore Ravens up to +8.5. And let's do, you want to go ahead?
No, I like this. I like where you're heading.
Okay. We're working through it. Yeah. And then we'll do the Vikings. Why not? We just talked about them a little bit. It's now, you can get them up to 8.5 as well. Detroit is playing some good ball. They're still dead last in paper play allowed. Minnesota is 25th, so not much better, but I think it's going to be a back and forth game. Could be team that has the ball last might win this game outright. But nevertheless, I see the margin of 8.5 or being less than 8.5. And then for Baltimore, there's an overcorrection here with Tyler Huntley. Didn't play great last week, but we've seen in the past when he comes in, the offense not falling off that much. Pittsburgh is pretty good against the run. They have been successful recently and the entire season against the run. But again, massive rivalry game. Probably the best rivalry in football, or it was when these teams were a little bit better. And I just think 8.5 points is too many there as well.
Yeah. So that was the the teaser that I was looking at. There's one of the two teasers that I was looking at. The Baltimore-Pittsburgh game, total of 37. And generally the rule is there's two rules with teasers. First is you want to cross 3 and 7 because those are the big key numbers that give you enough of a percentage boost to make a plus EV bet out of the two sides, right? Because you're gonna have to pay a little more of a vig when you do bet a teaser, and you need both sides to be what's roughly like 75% to win. So crossing 3 and 7, you do that. But the other one is low totals, right? So low totals mean that you have a smaller chance of a big point differential, and that is a low total. Now, Minnesota, Detroit, to your point, 52.5. I think both teams kind of do want this to play under, but I'll throw out just one more option here, and that is Arizona at home plus 7.5. So they're currently plus 1.5. You could tease them out to plus 7.5. So you cover both those numbers. 44.5 is the spread here. Neither one of these offenses particularly scary. And you have a Patriots team who, like, should they be the favorite here? Well, I don't know. Mac Jones is meh. So, like, how do you really feel about them pulling away in this one? And on the other side of things, they have not shown the ability to stop a number one wide receiver, and obviously DeAndre Hopkins is one. So that's the one I'll throw out, Brad, as an additional option. I like both of those. So that was my teaser of the week. Where do you want to go next?
Yep. So next one I'm going to go to is Cleveland plus 6. This came out plus 4.5 against Cincinnati, and I think we all kind of liked or leaned towards Cleveland on the podcast. It's now moved out to 6 points. Look, Deshaun Watson was terrible this past week. He was, plain and simple. He was just awful. But I think eventually he will figure it out and get the rust out and play some decent football. Obviously, the first matchup between these two teams, the Browns kind of blew out the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a good matchup for them. Myles Garrett is going to terrorize Jonah Williams or Lyle Collins, whoever he's matched up against. You have the good outside corners in Newsome and Ward that can mitigate a little bit of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, do better against them than most teams can. And I just think 6 is too many points. I mean, Brissett won this game handily. I think they can run the ball in Cincinnati. I think you can try to expose this secondary that I still think needs more, exposing. But maybe as time goes on, teams will figure that out. Kevin Stefanski's been great this year. I don't think people realize how much he's benefited this team in his play calling and execution with Jacoby Brissett. So, yeah, long answer short there. I think Amari Cooper is going to go nuts against whoever is matched up against him. And I like the Browns plus 6.
I am a fan of that as well. I'm going to go to Jets Bills next. So Judah talked about this game earlier and love his play there. It's currently Buffalo minus 9.5. Look, there's definitely a chance that Buffalo, covers this. Obviously, it's kind of a stupid thing to say, but it's not necessarily about thinking, Jets are going to necessarily keep this close, because you never sort of know what happens at the end of the game. What I mean by that is Mike White could throw a pick 6. Mike White could also score 14 unanswered. And so for that reason, I like 43.5 over. I think that Mike White is not a good quarterback, but he's a good quarterback if you're trying to get points scored in a game. And they have shown a ton of confidence in Mike White. I think that's the thing to be kind of aware of here. And he's paid off with it. He has a 5.5% big time throw rate. For comparison, Josh Allen is at 6.4%. I think only one quarterback in the league is higher than that, if memory serves me correctly. So, he is one of those guys that is taking chances under pressure as well. He's a 92. He actually has a better passer rating under pressure than when clean. That will change. So 43.5, you think about the Bills, their last game, the Jets, their last game against Minnesota, they were they really had no shot. And then at the end of the game, they got spunky. So you could see that happening again. They lost 27-22. Obviously that covers there if they have this same spread, the same total. And you look at the Bills. The Bills came off of playing the Patriots, where they put up 24. They're obviously a team that you feel pretty confident about putting up points here. And so I think this is probably a little bit lower because you've got the Jets defense. Everyone feels really good about them with, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. But I think the Bills are going to figure out a way to get Stephon Diggs the ball. That's just my guess. And it's not as if the Jets have played a guy like Josh Allen week to week. He presents kind of this unique set of skills. The other thing is they've already played the Jets. The Jets beat them as a 10.5 point underdog with Zach Wilson. So I would expect the Bills to come out and make sure they put up more than 17 points.
This is one of my favorite totals of the week. I asked about the pace of play with Judah because I wanted a justification for liking that bet. So we're on the same page there.
All right, where do you want to go next?
So the next one I have here is, so we talked about this on Sunday as well, and it is the Seattle Seahawks, and they're now laying 3.5 points against Carolina. I know they've been not as good the last couple of weeks. Their defense in particular has been really, really bad, but that I think is why I like this bet, and some of the movement going against them is, can Sam Darnold take advantage of a bad defense? I don't really think so. Darrell Taylor has been playing better opposite Shannon Wosu. They've been getting some pressure. Carolina, you can still get after. And of course, Sam Darnold, you can always he'll hold on to the ball too long, have some turnover-worthy plays. But I think we're seeing kind of like PJ Walker. You get the early first couple of weeks period where things go well and everything is schemed up and they keep you clean. And then you have to win some football games and make some plays. And I do not see him doing that. So the last piece here is he just always targets DJ Moore. When he comes in, he has a 35% target share. And I think 75% of the air yards since Sam Darnold started playing go towards DJ Moore. You got Tariq Woolen, who I'm not going to travel with him, but we'll have matchups with DJ Moore, and I think is the better player in that matchup or can take advantage of it. Might get an interception because Darnold just blindly throws it at DJ Moore. So I like Seattle minus 3.5 now against Carolina.
Yeah, we got the fact that the Seahawks made the Rams' pathetic offense look like it was alive. It is a little bit scary. But that's kind of you want to buy them sort of the bottom of the market. And obviously the Panthers are just terrible, just absolutely terrible. So I like that angle. I want to bring this game up, and I kind of have, I want to get your take on it, because Brock Purdy is favored against Tom Brady. And this is a quote from Trent Williams. You would think he's been in the league 15 years. If you're talking, he'll say, shut your ass up. He ain't no timid rookie feeling his way around. He will get on your ass. You would think he's like Peyton Manning or something.
I mean, hey, Brady, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, okay, sure. But the reason that I kind of throw this out there is no Tristan Wirfs. You have a right tackle in, I want to say Beanie Wells for all the people that will remember Beanie Wells, but it's Josh Wells, who has a 51.1 pass block grade. Nick Bosa keeps getting under-recognized for Defensive Player of the Year. I think this is where he gets recognized. And I don't know if it's that simple, but obviously the reason Brock Purdy is favored is not because Brock Purdy is better than Tom Brady. Tom Brady's played fine. He has the 10th highest PFF grade this year. But you look at where the Bucs would struggle in this game, and it's like, I don't want to sound like I'm oversimplifying it, but their offense seems like it could really struggle in this game because Nick Bosa should just be living in the backfield here. So I'm a little tempted. I'm a little tempted to lay it with the Niners. I can't believe I'm saying that. I want you to talk me off it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to. I don't know if you watched the Monday night game with the Saints, but Donovan Smith, the left tackle, had one of the worst games I think I've ever seen. He was holding on pretty much every single drop back and still giving up pressures and giving up sacks. And then, Beanie Wells on the right side was obviously a bit of a drop down from Tristan Wirfs. But the reason why I do like it as well is Byron Leftwich and this offense have continued to just slam Leonard Fournette into the back of their guard for a half a yard gain. Rachaad White's got more carries, but it's been the same.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still going to do that. They're going to say, look, we got to, establish the run and get the ball out of Tom's hands to mitigate this pass rush. I think he would mitigate a little bit with quick passing. But yeah, I think they're going to just keep running the ball, and this Niners defense is going to just explode to them up front. They're going to be in 2nd and 10. I think every single drive. So yeah, it's crazy as it sounds to take Brock Purdy against Tom Brady. It looks that way to me as well.
Ah, man, we got to find something better than that. Do you have any more that you would like to throw out?
So It's funny you mentioned that. It's weird. I kind of like the over in that game as well at 37. I know it's super low. You're getting Brock Purdy. But I did, I touched on it a bit there with Tom Brady. I think he will just throw the ball in 2 seconds, and that'll be how they overcome the issues up front. But and they are second in pace of play this year. The Niners are actually third slowest, so that kind of scares me off there a little bit. But no, those are all the plays I had. I think we unfortunately have some good CLV from Sunday, but games that we liked have crossed key numbers at this point. So
yeah. By the way, if you're not listening to the Sunday Night Pod, that is probably the best time to bet on any spreads and totals. But we recognize that people have lives out there, so. We got to do something a little later in the week as well. Okay. I think that the teasers both make a lot of sense to me. Whether it's Ravens and Vikings or Ravens and Cardinals. So I would say we pick one of those. We didn't mention any props. Obviously, it's hard when props haven't come out, at this juncture in time. Earlier in the pod, I mentioned Tyreek Hill against the Chargers, also Joshua Palmer against the Chargers. So I think those would be ones that we would consider. We've got the Browns +6, the Jets and Bills over 43.5. Let's start here, Brad. Which of the teasers do you like best?
I definitely like the Ravens as one of the legs. That's probably my favorite leg of all the ones we discussed.
Okay. And thinking about those two, the other options. So you've got Vikings 8.5 or Cardinals 7.5. Which one feels right?
I lean towards the Vikings. I do like your Cardinals play. The Patriots are bottom 5 in EPA per rush on the season. They have some weaknesses, and then this will be the first week of I think the entire year we get DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, and Rondale Moore, all three playing in a game. So that matters. I mean, it's hard to defend 3 good receivers like that. So I could go either way. I do also just think that like Minnesota, they always kind of have trouble with Detroit. It's always a 1-score game. All they do is play 1-score games. So I like both legs a lot, though.
Okay, let's roll with your gut there, and we'll go Ravens Vikings. Members of the printing press are not going to turn down a good bet, but to be official of record, Ravens Vikings is one of the locks of the week. Do we want to go with 3 and throw in Browns and Jets Bills over?
I love the over, and I definitely could do Browns. The over should be in there, though. I think we locked that in.
I think the over should be in there. Here's the one thing I'll say about the Browns. So the Browns have just really done well against the Bengals. Bengals are coming off of a huge win against the Chiefs. The Browns looked absolutely awful against the Texans. But the Browns have worse karma. I can't believe I'm bringing this up. But can you actually bet on the Browns for the remainder of the year with Bill Cosby playing quarterback back there? I just don't know. I don't know if we can do that as a brand, as to the members of the printing press. Can we subject them to rooting for that?
That's fair. No, I don't want to put anyone in that position.
All right, so there it is. We've got a teaser and we've got an over. Going a little unconventional, but I think a lot of good bets for people to get out there and bet right now. You can do so obviously by going and downloading the PFF app and jumping from there to your favorite sports book. I've got a couple on there, or jumping onto PFF.com, looking at PFF Greenline, which is obviously what we use as we're kind of working through things and checking out all of the great betting content from a lot of the people that we talk to on here, as well as guys like Ben Brown who are on the Sunday Night Pod that you should all check out. So that is the lock of the week. We appreciate all of you for hanging out. Brad for waking up early, everyone else for waking up a little early, and we will see all of you wonderful people on Sunday night. Peace.